they now got to sail through some of the most beautiful scenes in all of Scotland, and quite possibly even in the world. But I may be just a touch biased on that part. So if we've got any nature lovers or bird enthusiasts, we have a heron just off to the left here, just sat on the riverbank there. It has got his head tucked in at the moment, you can't wonder why. But if you're not familiar with herons, they are an extremely patient fishing bird. They will stand there for hours and hours just waiting on a little fish to pass it by. A very passive but effective hunter. And that heron is just sat at the very beginning of the River Ness. So if you have made your way into Inverness city centre at all, this is the river that flows straight through the middle of it. Right here is where it begins. It is one of the shortest rivers in Europe, measuring only 6 miles long. It is a very shallow and fast-flowing river, and is very popular with fishermen up here. Although the fishing season ended just about 3 months ago, and does not start up until April again. And for those who may be interested in the fishing season, there are 4 very strict rules around it. Firstly, you must have a permit to fish in Inverness. Secondly, it is fly fishing only on the river. Thirdly, there is a catch and release policy, so anything you catch must then be released again. The fines for taking a salmon home for dinner are just not worth the taste. That is a very expensive meal. And the final rule, definitely the strangest of the 4, there is absolutely no fishing on a Sunday up here. Even the fish get a day off on a Sunday in Inverness. And we have just now entered into the first of those 4 lochs. This is the Loch Dochfour. Not nearly as wide, long, or as impressive as Loch Ness, but it is the gateway to where we are going today. So you do have a break shortly, I promise, but just before we get there, coming up shortly on our right-hand side will be the Dochfour estate. Now I will give you a clear heads up when this is visible, because we do still have a few moments, but this is a very large and beautiful home that rests here on the banks of this loch. But aside from that, it does hold some significant Highland history. Now this estate was gifted to Sir Alexander Bailey by the Crown way back in the 1400s, and it has managed to remain in the hands of the Bailey family even to this day. It is still a privately owned residence, so you cannot go in for a tour or a visit unless they invite you. But the house you will see sat here very, very soon is not the original one. That was burnt down in 1745 by English government forces because they suspected that the Bailey family allied themselves with Bonnie Prince Charlie and the Stuart cause during the Jacobite rebellions. But the Baileys had the wealth and the power to rebuild, so they did. They rebuilt the estate in 1780, then had the home redesigned into the house you see now on the right-hand side in 1830. So as it stands, it is just under 200 years old, but the Bailey family have lived here on this estate for just under 600 years. One family, one land with 6 centuries of history right here. And as we continue along, still looking out that direction, just as these trees open up again into these gardens, you may be lucky enough to spot 2 cannons pointing straight at us. Now these cannons are not replica or display, they are authentic, have been defending this estate since the 1700s. So the first one's just to the left of this metal cage there, which is a tennis court none of us have ever seen be used. And the second one is just between these 2 large trees in the middle. That should be just coming into view now. So I will now give you your first break. It is only a short one though until we approach the next landmarks. Then you do have a longer one after that. So enjoy the brief peace and quiet for now, and I'll be back shortly. So we are almost there. Just as we come round this corner, we will break onto the open waters of Loch Ness. So get ready, this is what you came for. We are almost there. But just before we do reach Loch Ness, just coming up on our right-hand side, about 1 o'clock at the moment, this little white building on the corner here is the Bona Lighthouse. Now this was originally constructed in 1815 as a storeroom for materials during the construction of the canal. Then in the mid-1800s it was converted into a lighthouse. Now this lighthouse used only a single paraffin lamp that would burn in the top bedroom window where the lighthouse keeper would sleep as its beacon. Now if you are not familiar with paraffin, it is an extremely unpleasant and poisonous experience to be around. So many months of relentless complaints about this later, the canal engineers eventually gave in to the lighthouse keeper and they installed a little chimney just above the top bedroom window that would extract these unpleasant fumes. And it done this for just under 160 years before being replaced by this metal spire on the garden, which now uses an electronic beacon. So if you're looking above the top bedroom window now, you see that little black cone chimney, and that would extract those paraffin fumes. And also just off to the right here, this little village on the shoreline is one of the most appropriately named places here in the Highlands. That is the village of Loch End. Can you imagine why? It's on the end of the loch. Very imaginative indeed. And it was in fact just right there off the beach at Loch End that the famous black and white photo of Nessie that I'm sure you've all seen was captured. It was right there that the whole world caught Nessie fever. So this is it then everyone, you are now all officially sailing on the world famous legendary Loch Ness. But just before I disappear and give you some peace and quiet to enjoy it, if you would like to see a beautiful fairy tale looking castle, I would urge you to be looking directly left now. Now this beautiful castle is only visible for just a few seconds between a break in the trees, so again, I would strongly urge you to be looking left or you will miss it. Now this will be Aldowrie Castle. It is the real deal. It is the only habitable castle on the banks of Loch Ness, and its earliest construction dates back to 1626. It is now a privately owned property, however you can hire it. It has 12 bedrooms. You cannot just take one or two though, you must take the full estate. So at least you will have the whole castle all to yourselves. You will have it for 2 days, 1 night, and you can live out all of your prince or princess fantasies here for the small bill of £35,000. Now as promised, I will leash now, give you some peace and quiet to enjoy Loch Ness, and I'll be back with some more stories in a while, so see you then. our left-hand side now is another little village, and this is Dores, D-O-R-E-S. This is one of the most popular locations here in Inverness, and that is for a few reasons. It's absolutely beautiful, of course. It's very easily accessible, only about a 10-minute drive out of city centre if traffic's on your side. It has a large and expansive beachfront that many people can enjoy on the 3 days of summer we get a year. And there is also a local legend that lures people here, and it's not messy, but their stories are very much related. They're just nestled between the beachfront and the village itself. There is a car park in there, and if you're lucky, you may spot a faint pale yellow structure sitting in the middle. Now that is the home of Steve Feltham, or more locally known as the Nessie Hunter. Now, Steve came up to Loch Ness on holiday with his parents when he was 8 years old, and he became absolutely captivated by Loch Ness, and even more specifically, the Loch Ness Monster. And he decided at just 8 years old that he would dedicate his life to finding the monster. So a couple of decades later, in 1991, he packed up his home in Dorset, down in England, sold the house, purchased a 1970s mobile library van, drove it all the way up here, parked it on the beach, converted it into his permanent private residence, and still resides on the beach in the van to this day. Since his arrival in 1991, Steve has spent every day since searching for the monster. This has gained him recognition in the Guinness World Records for the longest continuous vigilant search of the monster. But if you're curious how many times in his 34 years of searching he has seen the monster, when we asked him just a couple of months ago again, he told us very honestly that he thinks he has seen something once. Not bad for 30 plus years of dedication, huh? However, he is a true inspiration because he followed a young boyhood dream, has now built a legacy for himself, and will forever be known in history as the Nessie Hunter. Steve is living proof that if you follow your personal passions to their fullest degree, that anything is possible, even if it is living on a beach, hunting a monster and calling it work. So just before I disappear again, our skipper John today is just lining us up with a look down the middle of Loch Ness. So if you would like to have your chance to stare right down the belly of it, which can I just say, most of the time there is an ominous white wall of rain about halfway down the loch, blocking the view. So you are exceptionally lucky to have these incredible distances in view to you today. So I would encourage you to get out there, look down it, and enjoy these spectacular scenes this morning. Now when I come back, we will talk a bit about Loch Ness itself and some more on its most famous resident. But that is in just a little while, so see you then.